Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Not much welding in this video, maybe some sparks, I don't know. But it's very bad weather the last few days or weeks in Denmark, so I'm doing some electronic stuff for the boat. And I thought I'd show you what I've been working on and want to work on, and some ideas that I have. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. Now to give a bit of a heads up, and I think some of you might have noticed with the whole boat project, I have a tendency to reuse a lot of old stuff. For one thing, me and Teresa, we simply don't have the money to buy a lot of new stuff. And I honestly think, even if I had the money, I wouldn't. I'm really against the idea of always buying new things instead of trying to reuse old stuff, repairing it if it's broken or whatever. I think that's so wasteful and annoying when people simply go out and buy their way out of things. For some things, fair enough, you don't want to trust on old stuff, fire extinguishers, things like that. But there's a lot of stuff that can be perfectly fine reused. So that's also why Omala is an old boat. I was not going to build a new boat. I think 70% of the steel is recycled from other boats and other stuff I've cut up and then reused. And I think the interior and electronics is going to be pretty much the same percentage, if not more. Yeah. So some of you might have some worries about the electronics that I'm doing, but I'm sure it will be just fine. So I'll start off by showing you something I've worked on off camera. This little box here. It's really nothing fancy, but it's a control panel for the main engine that will be mounted in the engine room. So I also have this one here, this instrument panel that Omala came with, as you can see, Perkins engines. I still plan to run this in the wheelhouse whenever I get to build that. But given that that is probably going to be some years before I have that, I want a good system running in the engine room that I can rely on. So actually, before I open it up, I'll show you what I started out with. I started out with one of these. It's from Illutron. There's a lot of old electronics enclosures that we've been taking off over the years, removing or whatever. This is actually a single phase switch. No, sorry, it's a three-phase switch for one of the fuel transfer pumps you used to have. It is so cool, the mechanics of it. So we're also keeping that. But I actually want to reuse the boxes. So this one started out as one of these, and I gutted it. Cool thing is, let me see if I can find the little plate that came with it. Here it is. As I was saying, I wanted to show you this. Illutron was built in the Netherlands, and of course now we're in Denmark, but I think it's so cool that all this stuff comes from the Netherlands. So this was built in Hengelo, Holland. There's two Hengelo's in Holland, but I think this is the one close to my hometown of Arnhem. So I think that's so cool that stuff comes from there. It was mounted on here. Yeah. So I'll put this aside, but this is a little control box. I got engine oil pressure here, gearbox oil pressure, and engine coolant. There's no RPM counter, there's no charge indicator light for the generator, all that good stuff. That will all be present on the other instrument panel. This would just be for starting the engine. Stopping will literally be with a pull cable on the fuel pump. But I can power it up, show you what it does. I got the coolest little power supply here that was given for my birthday by my friends. Alright, so now the power is off. I can turn on power, turn off the backlight on the meters. I have a little, let me zoom in, little voltmeter that will show the voltage on the starter batteries I would have. I run a 24 volt system. Actually, I should screw this up a bit. Yeah, you get the idea. Then, yeah, this switch is for the backlight, and this one triggers a starter relay. So on the inside, there's not much going on. I cut up a piece of cutting board, which turned out to be Teflon. Stupid me, I should have used it for something else. Then I made some little brass bus bars. And the starter relay, Omala came with the relays and gears, or gear switches, everything built by Lucas Electronics in the UK. I'm not entirely happy for that. So I plan to replace the starter relay on the engine itself by a proper brand one, I think. And this relay will switch the starter relay. So I don't actually want to use this push button switch to trigger the starter relay. I think there can be quite some currents running through that. So I use a 4-phase relay. So there's 3 phases and then a neutral switches. Good thing is this one, I will always be able to trigger it by hand in case the switch fails. And I've actually connected all of them together, so they all run in parallel to deal with the current or the load from switching the starter relay. And I got a little fuse in here, and then I made a little ceramic fuse here, not fuse, ceramic resistor of 300 ohms because the gauges need that. So again, 90% of this was reused. And I think it turned out great. It's the same color as the engine. Cannell and Grøn. Yeah. So that is going to be mounted in the engine room at some point. Now, for some of you that have a bit of imagination, you might recognize our boat in this one, or at least Omala. And what I've been fixing up is the sinking alarm for the boat. I was working on a houseboat. Was it 1.5 years ago? Not mine, but from a client. And I was decommissioning the engine room on that one, and I got a lot of good stuff from that boat. It was built on the DDR as a canteen boat, so workers were eating on that ship. And I took out some of the stuff, some of the materials, so the day tank got out of that one, and part of the sinking system as well. So the idea, or how it looks like on Omala now, we have 3 compartments, watertight compartments. There's a watertight door in here that goes into the front peak, which will be the bedroom of Ike. Then we have our main fuel tank, which is going to be our living room. And then in the back we got the old stern fuel tank that got cut open, and that's basically one big room now. That's the engine room, and there is an entrance on the top. So this is also a bulkhead. And I want sinking alarms in all 3 compartments, just because I can. So I've been quite lucky. Our neighbors, who is a boat workshop, they were cleaning up, and they gave me a whole box of sinking alarms, or not alarms, of float switches. which I definitely plan on using. I have these are not really marine grade, but they're made for to be used inside of tanks. And they have a flow switch in them, and they work fine. I think I have like 5 of those. But I'll have one of those in each compartment. Here's the other one. And there's one more here. So those will get triggered if water enters the boat. Then I got another really cool one. This little bugger here might not look like much. This one, let me actually try to show you. Not sure if you can hear it. It's pressure triggered, so you put a little silicone tube or rubber hose between it. This cup stands on the bilge, like so. When water level rises at a certain level, I need to look it up in the manual, it actually triggers. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. The downside is, of most of these switches, I also have like the standard type. I don't know what I'm going to use those for. These are all, oh, there's another one here. These are not rated for high currents. They're just for switching. I think it says on the side, what was it? Less than 1 amp they can switch. This one can do 10 amps. So I had to figure out how I want to make this system. So let me grab the next part that belongs to this. This came from the houseboat I was working on. It's a official sinking alarm, bilge alarm, approved by Søfartsstyrelsen, by the maritime authorities in Denmark. It has 4 zones at the moment, as it says on the top here. Bundalarm forward, bundalarm agter, kloaktank full, or dispension. That means bottom alarm front, bottom alarm rear, sewer tank full, and additional 4 zones. And I'm gonna relabel some of these, but this is gonna be my main 3 zones. My black water tank might run on the 4th auxiliary one. And inside is a bunch of relays and some fuses. Cool thing is, if one of these 3 switches gets triggered, it turns on the zone, the light turns on, and then there's an alarm that I have as well, a big bell that starts ringing. So it will indicate that water is entering the boat or at a certain level, and then you can turn it off and reset the system. It also has a relay output for a fire pump or a lensing pump, so it can automatically turn on the pump. And if power gets cut to this system, so this gets fed by 24 volts, then there is an emergency light system with 3 fuses, so it will get fed from the used batteries, 24 volts, and it will have a backup battery in 24 volts, if I can afford that at some point. If power gets lost from the main battery bank, it automatically turns on the nodelys here. That means it will turn on some emergency lighting in the boat. So in case water has filled up, this whole system fails, it can turn on emergency lights so you can see what you're doing. I think that's pretty cool. So I got 3 switches hooked up to the system. I got the alarm bell installed and I'm running it on 24 volts. And let me put this camera here. You will be able to see and hear some stuff working. It was really a lot of work to figure out. I'm not exactly an electronics engineer, but so the horn is on. Even I were to trigger any of these switches, so I can turn off the alarm. It's still hot, like I can turn it on and off. It shows what zones are triggered, and I can again reset the system. These 2 are still on because the trigger or the switch still in the hot position. I move these down. Now they're off again. If I were to tilt this again, light goes on. It's a really neat system, I think. It might be overkill, but I got it for free. So another thing I salvaged from a houseboat. It's a control panel for the engine room with some fuse boxes built in. It's again some additional switches for turning on. I can't see it. Starting, stopping fire pump, starting, stopping lensing pump, automatic start for a freshwater pump, but also a main kill switch to turn it off. Sewage pump, and again an additional one, dispension. Probably gonna relabel some of it, not really use all of it. Again, with this label here, it's approved by Sjöfartsstyrelsen, the maritime authorities. I think whatever insurance I end up getting for Omala, I think they would be happy to see something made like this. It's a bit outdated, the insides. There's some automatic fuses and contactors. 3-phase power meter, which could be useful to have. I have a friend Uwe who has been in some of these videos, one of my best friends, and I'm sure together with him we will figure out how to make this work for Omala. Omala is mainly going to run on single phase power because the spot we have for her, not here at Ilutron but in the other part of town, it only runs on single phase power there. So it will only be the generator providing 3-phase power, and yeah, the highly unlikely chance that we ever get a spot or a place where we have 3-phase power. But this will be probably the main fuse cabinet for the boat. For the AC side, the DC side will be in another system. But it's huge, and if I start counting up all the electronic boxes I'm gonna have in the engine room, it's gonna get pretty tight. So yeah, I will have to figure it out. So this charger came from another boat. Supposedly it's a 26 or 29 volt DC charger at 30 amps, and it runs on single phase power, so 220 volts. I actually don't know if it works. It's something I actually can't remember what boat I got it from. It folds out. There we have a transformer in there. Here we have some cables cut loose. It's always a good sign. I think the fuse holder is also missing some parts. Now we'll see if this one will want to work again. Just lift it up on its side, I think. The ground, I assume this ground clamp is grounded to the DIN rail, and therefore the DIN rail is grounded to the housing. And then we got 2 wires for 3-phase power. So I'm just going to try to wire it up, see if I can get a cap on the fuse, because that's missing, and then maybe it will actually work. Of course, No ground connection on this one, that's just great. Got 2 batteries in series, so they at the moment measure, I think they're quite flat, 24.5 volts. Got the charger hooked up, and nothing turns on. Why would that be? Did it blow a fuse? Should be power on this. What's going on here? Let's see. Alright. There is power on it. Now it says it's charging with 20 volts. That's not gonna be enough. Let's see how accurate the meter actually is. And it still says 24 volts on this. And no amps coming out of this thing either. So this charger is probably broken, and I'm not sure if it's really worth trying to fix, because I actually really would like a nice Victon charger. Yeah, which I already got. No, just kidding. This is just an empty box I found at the boat club. But I will use it for something, I'm pretty sure. So there was a video with a lot of talking, which maybe some of you guys don't like as much. But yeah, this is some of the electronics I have. I actually have a lot I've been collecting the last few years. That will eventually make it into a video. Got depth sounder, parts for an autopilot. I got things for a rudder indicator. I got a new voltage regulator for my generator. So Dirk, if you're watching this, thanks again for sending that over. That will find a good place at some point. Yeah, and then just a lot of other lights and things, and eventually Omala will get all this stuff installed, I think. So yeah, there am I. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and catch you in the next one.